Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's up, man? Are you gonna be doing video? You don't have to, but
Okay, probably not. I am dressed in rags,
no,
basically.
perfectly fine.
Current.
Just gonna keep the same stream in OBS. So everybody, this is Beckett, Beckett of Crabs from Seethe. Pretty fucking solid. One of my favorite drama channels, actually. Not to glaze too much. But Beckett, if you want to introduce yourself and say hi to everybody.
Hi, yeah. I'm sort of the host of Seethe. I do work with like Now Recording. I kick around commentary. We mostly do research and shit posting. I've had a couple of decent videos recently, which has been fun. But yeah, mostly I just talk about random degenerates and kind of usually smaller stories on the internet. I tend not to do sort of big commentary very much. Then again, I did Dogpack and all the Mr. Beast shit, so maybe that's bollocks. I don't know.
No, we were just talking about that. I don't know if you followed too much of it. But today I had you come in, or I wanted to talk to you really about canceling and like career ending and why sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, and kind of, in your experience covering this stuff, being a fan of it even before, how does someone actually end their career, or how do you actually end somebody's career? Like, how much effect can you cause?
It's really interesting. I was talking to Toastify about this earlier today, because everyone's doing this end of year reflect shit.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a video by Turkey Tom about 6 years ago of how to destroy a YouTuber, and I'd never seen it before, but I had to watch. It's really interesting because it's sort of like at the point of talking about commentary cop before Ethan, got laid and became a completely different person. Ian. There we go.
iDubbbz, he means.
yeah. But yeah, it's a mix. So I'll go on a little diatribe. So my personal view is that taking down another content creator is actually shockingly difficult. There's a couple of ways you can go about it, but generally just going, hey, there's this thing, I think it's really bad, isn't this person a bad person, doesn't really work. Every content creator has core pillars, things that prop them up as a creator. It's the thing their audience will know them for. And this will vary from creator to creator. Most creators aren't even aware of them. But the fastest way and the most effective way to take down a content creator is to knock out their core pillars, because their audience will abandon them. That's what they're latched onto.
Mm-hmm.
There's some easy ways to do this, pointing out people are liars, hypocrites, narcissists. Most people will never defend these traits in a person. So if you can make a really strong take for that, that's probably a pretty good way to do it. But the biggest factor is actually having an into their audience. If you can't get their audience to listen to you, you can't do any real damage.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of an issue with like, I feel like with the Mr. Beast thing, it's, there's a bunch of stuff that came out against him, and libel, slander, that whole kit and caboodle from Dogpack, but also some pretty serious shit. But it just seems like he is so monstrous, and his audience is so distant from the kind of people that would be listening to, like, Chud Logic, even Turkey Tom, Nick DiOrio, even Philip DeFranco or Ethan Klein, like that. How are you going to convince a bunch of like 12 to 16-year-olds or whatever it is that generally watch this guy, like, hey, he's bad news?
Well, I mean, here's the thing with Jimmy as well.
Jimmy.
So Jimmy never has to respond ever.
Mm-hmm.
He really didn't need to, until the point it hit the mainstream media, and that was things like the Beast games.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, it's really difficult. The stuff that gets sort of spun out against Mr. Beast is largely overblown. There are definitely issues there, but they're sort of just the issues of having a company. This stuff happens in every company pretty much. So it's like, if your criticism is company's bad, I'm like, sure, but this story started with Chris Tyson has a Discord full of minors and Jimmy might know about it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, how much at that point, when that's starting point, how much do I care about the rest of, like, oh, his business practices are weird? And let's be clear about what those business practices are. Dogpack worked there for 3 weeks, and it has a really weird internet history, what we can piece together of it, has brought out a load of false allegations, And then you look at people like Trey Yates, who was a former employee, whose grievance is that he wanted to work 9 to 5. And when he said this to Jimmy, they fired him. And Jimmy even phoned this guy and was like, yeah, I'm really sorry it didn't work out. I hope you're good. And he takes umbrage with this. I mean, how many bosses do you know that will phone a former employee and be like, I'm really sorry this didn't work?
I mean,
frankly, you know,
sometimes if something actually
like
really bad happened, but yeah. It doesn't sound horrible. Everything that I've heard, and we can move off Mr. Beast too, because it's not the best example. It's just kind of one of the most biggest, is that he's just kind of like got too big too fast and was like weirdly incompetent while also transitioning from the web 2.0 mid 2010s version of the internet into the like family friendly post apocalypse creator that he is now. When you look
at his like older content, I mean, he's got jokes about watching child porn and things like in his older content. And it's a very different kind of Mr. Beast. I want to be clear as well. Like I'm very much in the position of I'm frustrated with the story because of what Dogpack's done, rather than liking Mr. Beast. I've never really watched his content. I don't really care. But actually, I mean, it is an interesting one. You can see the damage that Roseanne and Dogpack sort of did. But like another example would be like Onision. There was already a very large collection of people that hated Mr. Beast. And part of that was to do with the fact that Mr. Beast would do something like build a load of wells, and then he'd get glazed by the internet. You know, he's the next Jesus Christ and stuff.
Yeah.
And then anyone who leveled any criticism was a hater. They were instantly dismissed. And if you do that to enough people, and it happened to enough people, you'll build a hate audience. And a lot of those people who really just hate Mr. Beast, they don't care about Chris Tyson, latched onto that.
And so, like, obviously, he's massive. One of the things that we were talking about that even popped this off from the get-go is I can't remember your exact take, so I'm not going to try to make it for you. But basically, with Destiny's had some stuff that popped off recently. In my mind, I think what it is a real concerted effort from a new Avengers, the anti-Destiny Avengers created sort of ad hoc from Dan Clancy or Dan Saltman's like assault on Twitch, and like that plus the IP stuff and all that mixed in has like people are trying to dig as hard as they can to make these giant Destiny things. But he seems pretty fucking resilient to it to me. I think in your opinion, you said you think it's probably going to limit his mainstream access. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so I think there's certainly an element there that if it gets much bigger, it'll have that kind of impact. I mean, there's a reason why we don't see, a serious right-wing, like, I say serious, but like, extreme right-wing creators on TV. There's a reason you're not getting Vosh on TV or, Hassan, because the mainstream, it wants.
I think Hassan's actually been on. I think he's actually gotten to Talking Head a few times on more minor cable TV shows. Like,
what's fair, but it's not Piers Morgan, and maybe that's an unfair take, and maybe I'm just biased because Piers Morgan is British.
Yeah,
but like
he was on Piers Morgan, but it's the Piers Morgan internet show. I don't know if that's online or TV or not. That was arguing with that guy.
It's kind of this with Destiny. It's kind of he's got this, I don't know, position where he's starting to try and become more serious. And when you've got a story like this coming out against you, because let's be clear, the accusations of revenge porn, for example, aren't the first time he's faced these accusations. These were accusations he faced, I think, in the mid 2010s.
I don't even know those ones.
He basically, I'm trying to remember the context for them, but somebody shared his dick pic, and then I think it was either in retaliation or in retaliation, he like was watching some porn of them in a Skype call with somebody. But that, it's been a while since I saw those accusations. I mean, we're going back sort of over a year to the Mac stuff. It's difficult because Destiny has kind of like a core fan base in DGG, and they will sweep for anything. One of my major criticisms for DGG has always been that their standards against one group of people is completely just dismissed when it comes up against Destiny. And you can kind of see this recently with Dan. Dan's talking about like forethought and how like, oh, well, we don't want this person. Is this person representative of the community as the Reddit mod?
Yeah.
Look at the sexual things he says to women. And it's like, okay, well, Destiny's comments about a shovel on Twitter, for example. I'm like, really, is this a million miles away? It's a very difficult. It's very difficult to hold strong moral positions around some of these things with the way Destiny acts.
Yeah.
And I think that could potentially become more of a problem. But the question is, well, you know, DGG will say, for instance, doxing's bad. Doxing's terrible. Mm-hmm. But when Destiny, responded to a joke about throwing an egg at him and defended it as, well, what if someone throws a stone?
Yeah.
And then that person kind of was, their identity was dug up. That sort of stuff gets defended. So when you've got an audience that's prepared to deal with inconsistencies, yeah, it's basically impossible to hit at them. But I mean, my understanding is that like Turkey Tom saw some of the stuff, and he's like, I don't know whether it was a disavowal. Someone pitched it to me as a disavowal, but I haven't seen it. I certainly saw some of his reactions, which were not favorable.
I think I saw that with the 8-year-old clip.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. So, I mean, that may limit Destiny's ability to interact with like some of the contacts he's been making recently, potentially. But part of the problem is as well, it's not just what people think, it's the optics of interacting with that person. And I think that's going to come up a lot during the Mutahar stuff now.
Mm-hmm. The optic stuff is kind of crazy because it's really unpredictable. It kind of goes to what you're saying with, you know, sweeping, and if you can actually speak to somebody's audience, I guess you would say kind of like on that audience's terms. I don't know how you speak to DGG in a way like, because they're just kind of like mentally perfectly attuned to Destiny in a way that a lot of other communities aren't. Like VGG, Vosh's community can get like splinters in it. Hassan's is pretty similar, that it's kind of crazy in its setup. So, you know, like if you interact and you try to like comment on them, what is the way that you could even do it so that they would have to like listen to you, you know, or is it even possible or worthwhile or what?
I mean, with DGG, as far as I can see, like the splinters that have sort of come off from DGG, like Hassan's community, because elements of that are certainly splintered, and with Vosh's, you sort of need a figure to pull them away. You kind of need somebody to pull it, like to already group a section of the community around and then rip them away from that. And you can kind of see that happening with Demon Mama. Like one of the reasons that like we released a Demon Mama video and it did nothing. And I know for a fact that Demon Mama told other creators not to cover it.
Yeah.
Which was the smartest thing Demon Mama could have done. But
that's a rarity.
Well, yeah.
A good career decision. Damn.
When you and Sunday had sort of shared audience members or like people had defected, I mean, people messaged me about this. In fact, I got messaged by one person who was really unhappy that I believe they'd been included in the Demon Mama video. They really hated me. And I actually messaged them and said, look, I completely understand why. I don't take videos down as part of the process. If there's an issue with the video, I want it there so people can criticize it and point to it and go, this is the thing Beckett did wrong. But I will blur the messages from you in the video because because I can see the wider context now and it's unfair you're in there. So like you've got people who are prepared to like listen, talk, and also the ability for them to speak to the community. And I think it's pretty obvious that Demon Mama's apology didn't work from the fact that Demon Mama is gone. Like that's a successful takedown, essentially. Whereas Demon Mama's nuke stream on Xanderhall didn't do shit.
I would say that almost flipped. Not even just because of my opinions on how it went and my reaction to it. It feels like Xanderhall was on a steady bleed out, really, until that kind of video, and then it's like responses of how kind of, well, that's not exactly how you talk about it. It made it like, okay, Xanderhall's a fucking psycho, but like, were you guys actually driving him insane? Yeah.
Well, yeah, the biggest problem with Dean Mom's response, in my view, from sort of like if you're trying to pitch this to a leftist audience, is saying, "Hey, we were really concerned, so we went and did a welfare check, and he's talking about like his family being there, and there's a gun, and then you're like, yeah, but we kind of decided it was fine, so we're doing this anyway."
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like for me, if I did that, like I wouldn't do the welfare check. I'd just be like, let's talk about the crazy person. I'm a drama channel. But when you're trying to moral high ground clearly immoral actions, you're going to have some issues with your own audience. And I think Dean Mama definitely did, even with the people who were, friendly-ish with her. So, those are kind of the things where you have to be quite careful. There's a core part of this as well of you can never truly cancel somebody if they just keep going. You can do damage to them, sure. You can do damage to their viewership, to their numbers, but ultimately audiences will forgive an awful lot of shit if you just keep going. It's one of the reasons why as well with kind of lolcows, the idea is to get them to continue to spiral. So the whole tomfoolery stuff of if you can get someone to keep talking about the topic, then people will show up to their streams, to their videos, just to watch them talk about it, and that makes the situation worse and worse and worse. And eventually, the audience that actually likes that creator often just gets bored and is like, we don't want to hear about this anymore. Yeah, and then they'll abandon the creator.
I've never done that to anybody.
No, never.
That kind of does bring in a kind of an entrance to a new thing. If people can be canceled and they don't stay gone, or the cancellation is flubbed, what's the harm and what's the value in these, deep dive reports? Some of them, you could say, depending on who's covering it and who's approaching it, there are varying degrees of ethicality. It's not all agreed on, throughout the entirety of drama. Some people decide to focus on different types of things. Some people decide to use different types of words to describe stuff, and what they value, what they focus on, and then how that kind of affects stuff. What's the good and what's the bad when all of that's kind of weighed out?
I don't think you can ever really cross your own boundaries. So like, for instance, I couldn't go at somebody for, I don't know, being a bit of a bully to somebody online. People would instantly be like, what the fuck are you doing? I can go at somebody for sort of like harassment, for example, because that's not something I engage in.
Yeah.
I'm actually fairly like distant. I tend not to quote tweet people. I tend not to do direct call outs. I'm never asking for accountability. But you've got to be, as long as you're holding your own standards, I think you're fine. There are some general community standards that like you can always like look to, I guess. But ultimately, like the question is, I think maybe one around harm and how ethical the other person is in conducting that harm. Like you get people who are just there for content. Like I Am Alex is a really interesting one for this. Like I Am Alex built his career off essentially call out videos. Like this person's an abuser, blah, 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 blah. Then what you're waiting for is essentially a video showing Alex doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's why the Alice stuff was that's why he hasn't turned up again. It's because there's no response he can give to this, because he has always gone with, well, you believe the victim, you run with the evidence, and you rip people apart. And that's exactly what's happened to him. And you've got now also a large hate community that is just waiting for him. I mean, like, how do you come back from that? Another one that's like kind of interesting as well is somebody called, oh God, they're Creepshow Art. There we go. Creepshow Art like was an art commentary creator. They actually started. They're essentially the origin point of what we think of as art commentary. This idea of like drawing an image.
This is the draw over it. Jar area.
No, that's technically slideshow commentary.
Oh, okay. I thought that was ACC. I just recommend it.
So ACC is like a really broad umbrella, but there are like divisions within it. But true art commentary content is basically talking about a drama or story or whatever, and you're doing art behind it. So you'll have like a kind of line drawing and the artist will be coloring it in as they go. That's kind of like the base of art commentary content. Anyway, Creep Show got cancelled, and they actually appear to be back. They're running a true crime channel with their like partner voicing it, and people have matched this up. Another good example is Kraut and T. Kraut and T was completely run out of the skeptic community, and now he's just
I know
a
that
history
name.
creator.
That's an old name. Kraut, dude. Jesus Christ. To that end, obviously, some people come back. Some people don't go away at all. But, you have your boogies. I mentioned Milo Yiannopoulos, of all people, way before. And then, even just at small levels of creators. Here's the thing. So in real life, you know what I mean? Obviously, IRL, you fuck up, you can go to jail. And you can say, I'm not repentant, but my sentence is 5 years. When I'm out, I'm still free. A lot of times people try to never let anybody go off of things, and that's your right to just never forgive someone. But do you think there is a statute of limitations or like a penalty period that people can come back from and like, I'm back now and I'm doing stuff?
I like the Keemstar standard. He sentenced Matt Jarbo to 10 years of irrelevancy. And then for years, every single video Jarbo put out, there's just tons of comments of haven't you been sentenced to irrelevancy? It hasn't been 10 years yet. And it was just, and it's not so much a statute of limitations. People love a comeback story. That's the key. So like for Jarbo, Jarbo got cancelled for false flagging, and that was on a kill stream with Ethan Ralph. And then years later, I think 2023, I want to say, he sits down with Medica, Ralph, and he moderates this debate between them. And that's his comeback because Ralph runs away from Jarbo. And then people are kind of more forgiving. So there's still people who hate him, but it's like, oh, cool. He's more normal now. It's fine. So yeah, that's very much kind of the thing. There's always going to be limitations of what communities you can interact with again. But there's also always going to be communities that will pick you up or don't know about you. The more distanced you are, the better. So there's another creator, Toon Critic. Toon Critic got cancelled, like 2016 or something, for grooming a minor. And it was really egregious. And he'd done it multiple times. He almost had a script for how he was like doing erotic roleplay with these kids. But he kept trying to come back. And every time people would find him and like be like, this is Toon Critic, this is just a new, because he'd stay within the sort of brony cartoon analysis community. And most recently he'd actually joined a furry community, and he was recently outed as being Toon Critic in that, and we did streams on him. I'm always interested in Toon Critic content.
Is there going to be like a Megan's Law? You know what Megan's Law is in America, the dots where it shows where a sexual offender is? Do you think there's going to be a registry for that at some point?
Like cancelled people?
Yeah,
I think it's interesting because like you can kind of see the you can always see the footprints of it. People will drag up dramas from years and years and years ago when people come up, especially if they kind of hit a moment in the zeitgeist. They'll be like riding high or something, and then people will be like, hey, aren't you the person who did this weird thing? I mean, a really good example of this as well, like you've got to remember people dig. So like for Linkara was I can't remember what the fucking drama was, but he was in drama over something, and
there's a
board
few.
was talking. Huh?
I said there's a few with Linkara. Which, was it a serious one, or is it just Power Rangers review will be coming out when it comes out?
His film. His film was coming out, and the film board was talking about him, and somebody was like, oh, I remember seeing something about this from years ago, and they dug up all his sort of like forum posts where he was on fetish websites saying that he wanted to date a hermaphrodite.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh my god, are we going back to fucking Lightbringer? I saw that scandal sheet on fucking 4chan in in 2016. I swear to God, I think I almost remember one of the movie ones, because if you guys don't know who Linkara is, atop the fourth wall with me, Linkara. He's a goofy guy in a fedora that reviews comic books, but he's got like 3 fucking movies that he's made, which are just like long-term reviews. I think it was like the second or third one. It was late. And he worked super hard on it, and I think he had a like a handshake agreement to go work on someone else's and do like the standard, that guy with the glasses crew appearance, right? It might have even been Cinema Snob and like ghosted the other person and didn't show up even though they showed up in their movie. I remember one that was like that. And then, yeah, they did. They looked him up. They found him on, I think they found him on like Literotica or something like that. And he'd written like some banger porn, dude. I think like diaper shit.
Yeah, it's interesting with people like Linkara because they've kind of boxed themselves in. I don't know if you've ever seen Linkara's rule page, but he has like banned words for shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't want to hear anything about his old dramas.
Yes.
So, it's an interesting way to deal with lolcowdom that you're like, don't say anything that will trigger me.
Yeah. Because it's all anyone's going to want to do. That's it.
Yeah.
Finding out that Linkara fucking hates Psychic Pebbles Linkara impression. I don't know if you know that. Like the Oni Plays guys, they do a Linkara, and he's like, I hate that. That is the only reason I practiced a Linkara impression in the first place, so that I could get good at one too.
Yeah, you've got like quite a few people like that. But I think at its core, the thing that like kills most content creators is just time.
Mm-hmm.
Their content gets old, it gets stale, the audience grows up. And it's very rare that a content creator will hold an audience for an immensely long time. Now, some people will like still defend an old creator that they really like, who they sort of grew up watching. But generally speaking, they're not watching those people anymore. I mean, how many people, realistically speaking, are Fred fans, right?
Oh, the squeaky voice guy, right?
Yeah, the squeaky.
Oh,
yeah. Who has 3 movies, one of which including John Cena.
God, I'm too old. I'm too old for that. I remember hearing about it, and the second I heard about it was the last time I heard about the Fred guy. Until like I think a couple months ago, it's just like, where is he now? And he's just old. He's an adult that doesn't. Yeah. I don't want to talk about that anymore. But kind of on that, sort of like flipping backwards. There's a lot of criticism from everybody. You know what I mean, against drama. One of the interesting ones is, everybody in drama works for like Diorio or Tom or fucking Chud or something like that, and you guys all kind of call each other and get on the same page, and you're like, this is what the news is going to be tomorrow, like a cabal, even though it's only like freaking 30 of you guys that are even over like a full 1K subs. That's a whole little conspiracy thing, but there are certain curiosities and certain like criticism which kind of relate to how you pursue and how hard you pursue, and it's not all of you kind of at the same level. So like what are the ethical lines really that you think are the most important when it comes to like pursuing drama? Like you're like, these are my tenets that I think other people should probably hold themselves to, even if you wouldn't like maybe say it, like I'm mad at you for not doing that.
That's an odd question in some respects. So let me take these in pieces. I mean, the cabal's become a meme because people won't shut up about it. It's certainly true that content creators talk. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And we all have little, I guess, friendship groups. Like obviously, I'm part of Now Recording, so I talk to the boys. I'm fairly friendly with Chris the Narc. I'm friendly with Xylee. And everyone sort of interacts. As I said earlier, like I was just sat on a call with Toastify. We're just shooting the shit about, some stories and like what we're working on. The idea that we all have the same take is kind of fucking crazy. Often there's general things with the drama where we're like, this is just bad. So we kind of go, yeah, that's the obvious take. At the same time, there'll be like levels to this. So I may disagree with Xylee on the severity of something. I mean, actually, a good example of this is the iNubber stuff for me. Like a lot of people dismiss the iNubber document immediately.
What is that? Can you?
When the I Am Alex stuff happened, iNubber also had a document written about him by his ex-girlfriend Kirsty. And everyone was like, yeah, this is another Nothing Burger focused on Alice, and I was like, no. This shit with the dog in the iNumber document is really fucking bad. It's like it's you know.
You don't need to clarify. I'll just say you can leave that one up to imagination.
Yeah, no. Basically, he had a dog that he'd used for content, and it was like he loved his dog, but this dog had a biting problem. It sent her to the hospital. He moved it back into the house when promising not to, and I had arguments with people over this, like publicly. I was like, I think this is way fucking worse than you guys are playing it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that we just go, well, what does Diorio think? It just isn't true. There's an element where you like, well, I want to understand what someone's take is before I, disagree with it, especially if I'm friendly with them or I respect them. But, generally speaking, most of us will have our own takes that will develop independently. And then, we may discuss them on streams or privately and, get a different perspective. But generally speaking, part of the problem with drama content is a lot of the people we talk about are so fucking stupid that it's kind of hard not to have the same take.
Yeah.
It's like, well, your fuck up's so obvious that it's easy to laugh with and laugh at, and we don't need to do huge amounts of dissection most of the time to reach that point. With the ethical lines question, I think "is it funny" is a pretty good ethical line. Because
I agree generally.
Ultimately, like, this is content. None of this should be that serious. I have things that I won't talk about, like I'm not going to do predator hunting. I'm not interested in doing predator hunting. I tend to do, like, there's so many stories about grooming, but if I can avoid doing one, if I'm like the rest of the content isn't as good or I'm not as interested. So like Diddy is a good example.
Yeah.
Lots of people in commentary talked about Diddy. I didn't because I wasn't interested.
Mm-hmm.
The other line is like, how much damage will it do? Is a really difficult one. You don't really know how stable somebody is. So it's like the question of, well, what if this person, like, I don't know, fucking goes out and ends themselves or something? It's like, well, that's true of literally any content anywhere. You never know the repercussions. So
yeah,
you sort of have to operate on the basis of, like, I don't know, don't harass people to death. But if I'm just talking about a thing that somebody is doing on the internet that they're talking publicly about, my personal line is I tend to not go after chatters. If you don't have a platform, I probably am not going to make a video on you.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute that you become a YouTuber, that you are going, I am somebody who wants attention for my takes, especially if they're another commentator where they're like, I want to do damage, or which is so often the case for small commentators. It's like, you're fair game. You're just fair game at that point.
Here's so that's the thing. I fucking go after commentators. It's a whole deal. But I can actually take it away from myself. It was the criticism I got with the whole Demon Mama thing. Don't sweep for me. Don't care. That's fine. But talking about major donors, and some people are like, that's a little crazy. That's a little bit over the line. But a little bit down the line, in a very extreme example, you have at least Chud Logic following down this line of his suspicion that this one major donor to, damn it, right off the top of my fucking head, the individual who just became a trans creator, long time, deep voice.
Oh, Ethan is online?
No. Fucking goddamn it. It just completely, everyone likes this person. They're a likable multi-million streamer. They get paid to keep doing the girl cosplay.
Oh, Finster.
Finster, thank you. That was the brain is gone. But he followed down this major donor who was paying, Finster to continuously engage and stuff. And eventually kind of found, like, in his mind, the connection there. I ended up not watching that whole thing because it is what it is. But, there is that presence of, when do you change from a chatter to somebody that is in chat but directly affecting the content and the platform, even just by paying for it, to kind of push things in a certain direction, Not to tell you to, like, you have to change your idea, but, do you...
Yeah, no,
take it away.
I think it's one of those where if you've involved yourself so heavily, so for instance with the Himpleton stuff,
Mhm.
we're talking about people who aren't really creators some of the time, and we're talking about things that happen in discords where you're talking about people who are so fucking minor. I mean, they are almost irrelevant.
Mhm.
But I think at the point where it's like noticeable, or if it's a key part of another story, it's not the same as if a chatter comes in and starts talking shit to you,
Yeah.
or they're spurgy on Twitter. I think there's a clear line in difference there, to how much attention you give. With the Finster stuff, and I don't know the story very well. I mean, it sounds to me like that's very core to Chud's take around what's happened to Finster,
Mhm.
and the wider stuff of like criticisms towards pink pilling, for example.
Yeah.
So I think it's relevant there. I think so much of this is on a case by case basis. So like for instance with Dogpack,
Mhm.
I have a general thing where I don't leak DMs. I don't like leaking DMs, and it's only if there's a good reason, like somebody's lied, and I'm like, look, I need to show that you've lied because it's doing damage to my credibility.
Yeah.
But with the Dogpack stuff, I was just like, fuck you. You ghosted me for an interview. You've lied about domestic violence. And your answers are, frankly, fucking insane.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leak your DMs. Fuck you. I don't care anymore. Like, so there's levels where you just sort of play it by ear and go, whatever. And maybe it's a case where the more you do this, the more you sort of get used to going, well, here's the line that I know I can tiptoe around.
Yeah.
But so often it's a case of, my original take, how funny is it? Because so much stuff will be excused if it's funny, because it is drama content. We are, slop is the term.
But sometimes the slop does have some pretty serious consequences, and it can be relative to some pretty intense stuff. People will have feelings about it. One thing you're talking about, finding the line. Obviously, funny's funny. I generally agree. My thing is, but if you try to go for funny and you fall short, you gotta eat shit. You know what I mean? Because that's the repercussion. But
learning to just take an L is very key. Because we all fuck up, we all make mistakes. I mean, it's really interesting. Again, like we're talking about like the Mudahar stuff, and the reason we were talking about sort of YouTubers getting destroyed is because Testify and I were joking. This kind of, it's a weird domino to the Nux stuff, to the Muda stuff now, where that probably wouldn't have happened, or at least there's a good chance it wouldn't have happened if Cope and Seethe had never put out the Shadman list, because Nux went fucking crazy over that list and being on it. And you kind of like see the butterfly effect to where we are now, and you're like, oh, okay, that's fucking bizarre. So
I was making that point. I don't know if I brought it up to you, but at the end of my I just covered the Mudahar thing too. That it does feel like we're entering like a season 2 of what started with the first Ava Chris Tyson drop, and then the Nux Taku, or the Shadman list, and now we're on this thing, and we're starting to see that there's a lot more. I am at least. There's a lot more connection between that Mudahar level of these kind of commentary guys that pay a lot of attention, a massive amount of attention to what's going on in your guys' feeling like sort of small ball world. And it seems like they're kind of drinking it up a little bit.
Well, I mean, the Ava Chris Tyson stuff really started with Tipster.
Mm-hmm.
That's its actual origin point.
No shit.
That's the irony of all of this. Yeah, like the reason everyone started looking into Ava Chris Tyson was because people were looking into Tipster's defense of Lolly. That's, and then commentary was getting shat on for being transphobic. And then, a month later, the people who were shitting on commentary for being transphobic are like, Ava Chris Tyson's a fucking degenerate.
Yeah.
So and one of the things I noticed, I bitched about this publicly because I was really annoyed by it. But like, look, people use what we put out all the time without credit, which is fine. Like, it's whatever. Like, I've used stuff uncredited. I don't really care. But I was annoyed when Roseanne used some of my stuff uncredited, because I'm like, you hate me.
Yeah.
You hate Cope and Seethe. You obviously know who we fucking are. But I know that you've used our screenshots because they are perfectly. You didn't even bother to like cut them down slightly to lie about it.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone hates commentary, but we are like, we're tiny, but we have a very, very oversized impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of intense. Speaking to impact, I keep kind of like bouncing back and stuff, but I'm trying to kind of be expansive of this because I have my one, not a toe,
I love a
guess.
tangent,
Oh,
so.
sorry. No.
I love a tangent, so
okay. Yeah. I have a toe sort of in your guys' like world because I'm just generally interested in it. Not like I'm a player or anything, and in my left foot wholly in a different one. And you know, the worst that anyone that's associated with you guys does is usually what you all get branded as. So you know, when it comes to stuff like kiwi farms and shit, logging, which someone will accuse other people of doing without even understanding really what it is or using that word. You know,
because that word's lost all fucking meaning.
It really has.
I mean, just quickly for anyone wondering, the original meaning of A-logging is, you know, because we all log things, but A-logging is when you basically log someone so hard you yourself become a lol cow.
Yes, it's named for a guy.
That's the origin.
Sorry, but yeah. Finding that line though between over pursuit, you know what I mean, like really digging and harassing. You know, where is that line for in your mind? Or maybe just general propriety. And when is it worth breaking, if it is?
I think it's when you lose sight. So again, going back to dog pack stuff, we spent 12 hours and got a lawyer involved to go through North Carolina court records. To kind of to prove the James Warren stuff.
Okay,
we were like,
I thought I was familiar with your game, and I was not. God damn.
Yeah, we like we'll go very, very hard. And you know, we're generally speaking, Cope and Seethe research is a little arrogant, but very, very good. I mean, we do take commissions for this for a reason, because people will come to us for freelance work. The line is when you lose sight of your own principles of why you're doing something. So like the soggy video might be a good example for this for me. I'll look at like harmful opinions and Tommy C's takes, and it took me a while to actually like kind of come around to the way they were seeing things. And I respect both of them. I like both of them. I've been a long-term fan of harmful opinions. So it's kind of a weird position, but I'm like, also, I've dealt with so much shit because of the dog pack stuff that even though I know that there are really elements where I completely agree with them, I'm like, yeah, but also I would burn quite a lot of people's bodies on the pyre of taking dog pack down because I hate the dude so much. And that's a bad place to be as a commentator.
It's kind of seeing
like,
your...
I am not in any way objective on this at all.
He's kind of like your dark half, I guess. You know, if you work that hard, he's kind of doing literally the opposite that you do, and nothing
at all. He's fucking
sucking up attention. You know what I mean?
Well, he fucked the story I cared about as well, because you know I talked to Chris Tyson's mods. I talked to the person who leaked the Discord. I still chat to him every now and again. I've got quite a few contacts in that little group. So seeing Dogpack run the story into the ground was upsetting. Like it really, really fucking annoyed me. And there are other people like that as well. Like I will go to there are one of the big things is anybody who's actually tried to burn me in the last year, and there's been a couple. I've gone infinitely harder at than I probably would have otherwise.
Taking it a little personal.
I'll take that stuff really personally because again, it's like, especially in the cases where people have tried to burn me because they're scared of how I'm going to react in the long term, and that's happened a few times. So they're worried that what I'm going to bring out is going to do damage to them. They know that it's coming out, so they preemptively do things. Crystal Flame did this to me. And then I'm just like, yeah, well, fuck you. I'm just going to start kneecapping you.
Nice.
Just to remove that problem. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Similar stuff happened with the Cinebear group, where I knew quite a few of them, and because my name got flung around by that group, and because people had like drawn associations from there, particularly with somebody like Romantic Goblin, I was very, very, very fucking done when she stuck around and kept chatting shit, because I was just like, well, you're just going to be a problem for me down the line, and I've been nice, so fuck off. That's it. That's kind of like, yeah, don't stab me in the back is kind of my line.
So with where we are right now, right? I'm moving track. It's a great place. Sorry, I'm in my like asking questions about. I'm just trying to fucking plug you for stuff. Otherwise, it would be a long
that's fine.
conversation. How do you feel about like drama right now? I know just from the periphery, I've seen, it's the tipster coming back, Bo Black's leaving, and the Nick Diorio, like the boys club is over type stuff. It seems like you guys had a shakeup, but you're kind of still pretty solidly where you are. People coming in, people leaving. How do you feel about drama ATM?
Okay, so Diorio put out a tweet saying there is no house, and that is true. Like you can kind of see this. Like, I obviously got on pretty well with Morale, who's like a newer creator. Diorio is like, I don't want to deal with Morale, because there's too much. Like he's on a one strike rule, as he put it to me on stream.
Yeah.
And but like, I can still interact with Morale and have like a friendly-ish relationship with him. It doesn't really impact anything.
Mm-hmm.
With the idea that like our commentators are going to stop talking to each other, it's a really difficult one, because part of the problem is that people, and I feel this, you get sick of burning your friends when they fuck up. Like this was, I think because people don't really know me from my Twitch pod days, I got on well with Wick. I got on well with Tomfoolery.
Mm-hmm.
I burned those relationships because they kind of went at my credibility first. In fact, they did go at my credibility first. In the case of Tomfoolery, purely because he hates Queeman. And it was like, that sounds like a Queeman take. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, fuck you. Because, if you're gonna do that. So it's one of those where, and fucking, the Kumu shit that's happened, I just want to sit down and laugh at shit on the internet and, make cool stuff and have fun. It's not great when somebody you know and you like is somebody who you're sort of partially forced into the position of criticizing. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't talk about it, people are like, why aren't you talking about this thing? This is the case. It's the case with Mudaha stuff.
Yeah.
Like, to an extent, how can you not talk about it?
And you're in a position too. It feels like from like, you're close to people, but also the economy of how YouTube is. It's like, well, if you're not going to talk about this guy who you're friends with the same level of like intensity that you're going to talk about like a perfect stranger that you're sweeping, is that, kind of like a fair assessment of how people will treat, I want to see you come after a friend.
There's an element of that. You can kind of like take or leave those accusations. Like, so for instance, like Chris and I, like, I think both of us said this publicly. If there was ever a drama and like one of us was in it, we'd probably have issues talking about the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, we might say, I just don't want to talk about this. I don't want to deal with it. Or I disavow, but that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it. It's unlikely that you're going to get the same level of kind of vitriol. That's probably completely the wrong word. In fact, it is. Or the same level of sort of like coverage, because you don't take as much pleasure in it. This happened with the Bo Black stuff to an extent. A lot of people knew Bo Blacks and just didn't want to talk about the fact that this was such an explosion. It wasn't because like Nick Diorio said we shouldn't talk about it. It was because people were like, oh, Bo Blacks has always been chill.
Yeah.
And then more and more people hit levels where they became personally aggrieved.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, fuck you. At the same time,
and that sort of did kind of flip, that softness. I kind of saw that. And I really heard a lot of hurt, honestly, from people that are usually like trying to present everything like, I'm above this kind of like, I like to keep a fun, friendly, like, oh, look at this goofy shit on the internet. And like it was a Tommy C like was like, you broke that guy's fucking heart, like this. Like, it felt like mafia guys talking to somebody before they fucking walk them out to the end of a dock. Like, it was kind of an interesting overall atmosphere for that like month-ish that was going on.
I think it hits certain people quite hard as well when you've been like close with somebody and they just continuously fuck up, because you don't want to see. Ideally, you don't want to see your friends fail, and there's a self-interested element there, but it's also, I like, you might like this person. You might want to be like, oh, they're cool. We get to hang out. They've been funny before. We've got memories together. And then you're like, okay, well, now I've got to old yell at you.
Yeah.
That sucks. That's a shit situation.
Tell me about the bunny rabbits again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I got to pause these things because I got you on here. I can't turn that down. Please, nobody donate anything. For a second, I got him on the same audio channel. Kind of off of that, speaking of Nux Taku, with Mutahar, it's even a little bit juicier, maybe. I don't know, juicier is probably the wrong word, but he kind of admitted in the video, in my opinion, that he was with a management company and felt maybe contractually or professionally obligated to do a little sweeping when it came to talking about the Nux Taku breakup. If you were in his position or in a similar position at that size, how would you deal with that if you had to?
Oh fuck. If it was me, I have no fucking idea. It's really easy to go, well, Muda should have done this thing, and this thing, and it would have been absolutely fine. But you can never predict the ripple. With something like this, you got to remember there's context around this. So firstly, Muda's coming off the back of his friendship with Mama Max, where they kind of all just took it as read that Max was not, a psycho who'd randomly label people as pedophiles.
Yeah.
And they were sweeping for him, like having those bigger content creator fans protected Mama Max. So he's coming off the back of that. The other thing to consider is Nux Taku isn't just a friend, though Mutahar is, at least from what I know about him, because I don't know the guy personally. I think I've spoken to him once. Muda's a nice person, from what I understand. He is not a drama hungry monster. And at its core, he's working with people like Umperville and Nux. Yes, as friends, but also because they do a podcast together under the same sort of company they're all with. Mm-hmm. So, there's a large financial element to that. There's a financial element to the people they were working with. I don't think they're with them anymore. But it's like one of the videos that came out with Nux showing hentai to his streamer friends. Well, it's Mutahar and Umperville.
Yeah.
So it's well, how much can you disavow that you knew? And part of it's just remembering where you've been and what you've said previously, and that trips up any content creator who's been around for a long period, especially just because people change over time. Mm-hmm. The best thing Muda could have done, at least in my opinion, is say, we're ending the podcast. This Shad stuff's really bad. I wasn't aware of it. My takes on hentai are, I don't really care that much. But I do care about the Shadman shit, and that's enough to end it. And that should have been it. And then he would have been he would have probably just been absolutely fine. Some people may have logged him and things, but probably most of the hate would have gone to Nux Taku.
Yeah, and that size, you probably get a bog stand. It's harassment's probably a constant background noise anyway.
Yeah, you're gonna get people showing you anyway. The big thing he fucked up, in my opinion, was going at Chud.
I was actually that was going to be my next question.
That is the wrong way to phrase that. Should we say speaking off the cuff and therefore lying to Chud, by his accounting, unintentionally, because that, he has a much larger platform than Chud, and it looks like he's punching down to another commentator because he has the ability to.
Yeah, the opinion I got from a distance was it felt negligent on Mutahar's part towards the possible damage, that it could cause Chud for giving bad info and then kind of, what then letting I think he let his audience go after him. I don't know why I'm interrupting you. You know more about this than me. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's an interesting one because I've been fairly critical of the way Muta was with Chud, but broadly speaking, I checked out of a lot of the Nux Taku and Muta stuff because I'm just not that. I just wasn't that interested. Mm-hmm. I'm now quite interested. I think I'll probably have a video out in the next couple of days on it. But Yeah, generally speaking, it's always difficult with creator relationships. The part of the problem here is that when I saw some of Diorio's coverage, and I think the general view that I'm sort of hearing in the last couple of hours is it's disappointing. Though I'm certainly not. I mean, I should be clear. I'm not in the house in kind of the sense I'm not friends with Mudahar. I don't get onto like the big podcasts. I am, very much bottom rung of the ladder. But yeah, it doesn't seem positive. So I think that will be an interesting one. The thing Nick said in the stream last night, which I watched back earlier today, was Muda needs to respond to some of this stuff.
Yeah,
putting out an apology video and then deleting it, probably not the best.
Possibly the worst thing to do.
Yeah, that was
serious. I wouldn't have put it out in that condition, and I wouldn't have deleted it immediately afterward.
That was pretty dumb. Yeah, that was incredibly dumb. I don't know. I don't have the same ill will towards Muda, so I'm still sort of like, when I say same ill will, I mean that I've seen from some of the hate communities. But yeah, it's weird to have the positions that he seems to be taking now, where he's like, hentai with anyone under the age of 18, 19 is like it's lolly, it's bad, it's evil, and then have a stream where he's talking about, oh yeah, I watched Dropouts or whatever, and it's like, what, bro? What you mean? That's that's a bit fucking weird. And again, going back to what I said earlier, like if you show someone to being a liar and a hypocrite, that's something that will do damage to them.
Yeah. The hypocrite, I always said on mine, is that if someone makes you look like a hypocrite, that's usually one of the biggest things. And it's what I've always seen with like, Kiwi Farms and CWC before it. That's their favorite thing to lock on to in a general sense. So I feel like it's a commonality.
Especially as a commentator. Because how can people trust your takes if you're not consistent? Actually, interestingly, Umperville just put out a video kind of following up the Mr. Beast stuff. And my instant reaction to it was, this man should not be a commentator ever. Yeah. Because he does not seem to understand that the things that he says online have consequences. He's like, what the best thing to do would be Mr. Beast and Dogpack to just get in a call and squash this feud. I'm like,
squash this feud.
He's cost him like millions of dollars and has accused him of knowingly watching the distribution of child pornography. This isn't a feud. This is a serious accusation.
It's a legal matter.
And if you don't understand that, you probably shouldn't be doing this. No. Certainly not at Umperville's size. That's a fucking insane thing to say.
Yeah, I think I watched 5 minutes of that video and ended up not watching the rest of it. But I think I got to a part where he said, like, I don't think Mr. Beast should sue Dogpack because of like journalistic stuff. And like, I'm First Amendment fiend, like, and I was a journalist. I can say, as literally on my credentials that I have, he should sue the fuck out of him, like for the benefit of everyone else that's in the industry that would be on Dogpack's side. It's good to see that repercussion exists, because I can't imagine there's a good reason not to. You know what I'm saying? Especially because like what's unless you were afraid that something was going to turn up in Discovery, which he wouldn't even be talking about it if that wasn't the case. Dogpack has pushed beyond 50 walls in addition to the one that I knew existed. I just can't believe the things he would say and the excuses he would make for himself and the leaps that he would take as just a person. Because he also didn't seem like he was like hatefully malicious. Like if you remember like hearing like people talk about like Chris Chan and or like related lolcows back in the day were like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy was fucking a lawnmower on the weekends because he wants to feel like a robot. Like psychotic, like, okay, I get you're trying to push it. He just seemed like he legitimately is so fucking dumb that he's creating a reality just as thoughts come into his head and is just going in that direction. Like I think he almost needs to be put in a fucking like a cell away from microphones and cameras for eternity. You can talk to him. I know you hate him, but like
I think it's malicious. I think it's that question. I got pushed back over my takes on Cam Nuggets, where they were like, "Well, Cam Nuggets is developmentally disabled." Quite literally, that was the take. Is like he's a moron. What can you expect? And I'm like, yeah, but if a moron's doing damage, I kind of like
you still got to stop him.
You know,
yeah.
And it's like with Dogpack. Nah, Dogpack's malicious. I think that you look at the way he's always operated. He knows. He knows. He's not actually as stupid as he appears. He's just very bad at this.
Yeah.
And I think Dogpack was banking on the fact. My view is this: Dogpack was banking on the fact that as his profile grew, more people would come out of the woodwork to give him evidence, and that did kind of happen. You can see that he didn't know about the Delaware stuff in his first video because he quotes Jake the Viking. Like he puts his tweet on screen at the beginning of the video. If he knew about the Delaware stuff, he wouldn't show that tweet because Delaware is linked to Jake the Viking. But when he gets involved with Weddle, then he starts to know about those things. And there are other people as well who there's a particular person. I'll be a bit vague posty about this because I haven't dug into it enough to make a sort of like standard accusation. There's another guy who's like people haven't really talked about, but is, I think, has a lot of money and is at pictures with Dogpack and is very open about how much he hates Mr. Beast on a company level. So you've got those elements where I think Dogpack started to gather more and more information, and because he's just, he understands analytics. That was his job at Mr. Beast. He understands how to like feed into the algorithm, how to audience capture. He doesn't understand how to run an investigation. He also doesn't understand the law because he wouldn't have said half this fucking shit if he did.
Let me clarify. I think I said it wrong, and I'm getting help by you talking. I think maybe what my impression was that not that it's not a malicious act, but it's just, I don't know if he actually fucking cares about Mr. Beast personally and hates, like he just doesn't like Jimmy. He's mad at Jimmy, or if it's like he just is trying to parasite his way up the ladder by doing stuff that is just like, civilly liable and stuff. Like, or do you think it's a mix? Or do you think he like personally hates Jimmy for firing him, or if you don't want to speculate on his mental state, please don't.
I think it's one of two things. I think either he was always planning to do an expose on Mr. Beast, and being fired as quickly as he was ruined his chances to do that effectively. But he's always wanted this kind of clout. Now, one of the things he said to me is that he actually had a 60K sub YouTube channel back in like 2016, and he's worked with other YouTubers. Now, I've heard rumors as to who that other YouTuber he worked with was. I can't confirm it. They haven't got back to me. They're very large. I don't expect them to. But the other question is like, well, was Mr. Beast his actual dream job, and it went so badly that now he's just aggrieved? I think there's an element of that. I think people like Trey Yates are just aggrieved employees who couldn't cut it in the industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you look at people like Roseanne, and Roseanne's just vindictive. Unquestionably.
Yeah, she's got mean girl, petty as fuck energy. Like from the little bit that I've seen her, she's unwatchable for me. I can't take that vibe.
Well, I mean, you gotta remember, she is like an old school YouTube aristocrat. And yet her channel's dead. Comparatively, she'll get like a few 100,000 views. But that's not what a 14 million sub channel should be getting.
No, yeah. The dead sub zone, which is, kind of the end for those large creators sometimes. If you don't mind switching gears, there's something I desperately wanted to ask you, and I fucking missed the right point earlier. And it's a point that I've been making. I don't know how much you follow my stuff necessarily, but I've noticed this issue that's coming along more and more, where it's the sort of people going to the nuclear option. And this is not, it's notable for drama because I've never seen it happen once that I can remember. But in politics, it's happening constantly now, which is people going for the nuclear option on individuals they don't like because of their politics, which is organized mass report brigading collectives. You know, you have Dan Clancy's is just, or Dan fucking Saltman's is just, I would have never even.
I've been insanely critical of Dan.
It's so beyond the pale, but now I'm starting to see it more. Denims was doing one with Tectone. There's been other creators that I've seen it. I've seen it popping up more and more and more. Obviously, I don't think you're from the same era of the internet that I'm in. That brigading calls and trying to get the feds involved, so to say, with moderation is never a good idea because that only ends badly. But what do you think is kind of making this like very sudden push toward using that as a weapon in all of these sort of ancillary communities as a way to make change?
So I'd say it's actually not very sudden for politics. Politics has kind of always been like this.
Oh, fair enough.
It's it's one of the major problems with it. But I've said before, like, because people are like, well, you've gone over to commentary and drama, and that's it's much more shit slinging and stuff. I'm like, yes, but everyone kind of accepts that they're dumb. You don't have to act super intelligent, and politics is intensely personal. You're essentially going to an audience and to other creators and saying, these are the things that I believe to be true about reality. And other people are saying, well, my truth about your reality is that you are mentally stunted, which is very painful for people to go through.
Especially when they find out it's true.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, much more than that as well. Imagine you go out and you're having a beer with somebody. You're just having a chat. And midway through the conversation, they're like, you are ontologically evil, and if you end up in a gas chamber, it would be a good thing. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah.
That's an insane thing to say to people. And because people feel like that, they're like, well, if this person's ontologically evil, there is no action I can take against them that is morally wrong. And I think that feeds an awful lot of, how far politics creators will go. It's why it's so vicious.
Yeah.
And that's a real issue because, like, firstly, it's become so normalized that it's kind of how you grow. When you look at like other big content creators in the politics space, they are making that money, that sub growth from having these I hate this group A for B reason. And you get rewarded for it. Whereas, you don't really get that in something like a drama community because there's no long-term growth from it. So Onision's a good example of this. The Mr. Beast stuff is going to be a good example of this. There's a few others that I could probably pull from the ether if I was really pressed. Communities that form around hating a certain person or group, or like a community, have a limited lifespan. And this happened to a lot of the Onision creators. They would get hundreds of thousands of views on an I hate Onision video. And then one day, people stopped caring about Onision and bam.
All those subs are dead now too. Yeah.
Yep. Just completely gone. You're fucked. So there's no longevity in it for drama. But in politics, there is always someone to hate on the side that the people hate them. So you can kind of go, you are going to see Xanderhall growth in the next 4 years because he is going to have infinite fucking Trump content to talk about.
Yeah, he's popping off again. He got like 2,500 subs in a day last week. I have some crossover between our communities, but literally on that same thing with the drama being isolated, generally, kind of audience wise from politics, a little bit of that is broken down because of H3H3. Now, I know he's not part of y'all's drama, small mid drama, but he's been a commentary guy now for a long time. And the H3H3 involvement in the Destiny Hassan spat with Israel-Palestine, I've noticed it is spilling its way, desperately trying to spill its way deeper into drama and commentary circles where people normally talked about Ethan. And it was just like, Ethan's cringe because Ethan did a cringe thing. Hey, today, Ethan was based. You know what I'm saying? But now all of a sudden it's like, wow, why the fuck is Willie Mac show having so many Israel-Palestine, like having to talk about it at all? Because, he's got to deal with Hassan. And this came up with the our YouTube drama thing. I've been asking around creator circles about it because I'm like, they covered me like once or twice, so I paid attention to them on Reddit. Like, hey, I like a reshare. But then I got on there, and it's like this like little petty war in every post where it's hundreds and like sometimes even thousands, and people spending money for like oh so brave comments on either side of the aisle for stuff that is like mostly supposed to be between those two, but it's starting to drip over into other things where it's like, oh, okay, this is a very political take on Medicare as opposed to talking about him from a Medicare drama standpoint. This is a very like lefty online title for this thing on I can't remember who it was, but it was like, this person is trying to talk about eugenics because they were like, I'm glad Chris Chan's not going to have a kid. I can't remember who they were calling out about it. It might have been Turkey Tom. But, do you see that spread as an issue or just as a thing of the moment and is bad or not a concern?
I think it's kind of always been that way to an extent. Like, Medica's always described himself as a constitutionalist. You've got always debates between the skeptic sphere and people like Destiny. When I first turned up in the politics sphere, people were like, Destiny created blood sports. No, he fucking didn't. What are you talking about? That's an insane thing to say. Yeah. But in their view, of course he did, because they only really ever saw that side of the community from the perspective of Destiny. Going right back to I hate this is true. This started with Gamergate in earnest. again
every time.
Yeah, it was there was always elements of this. So if you go back, let's go back a little bit further. Let's go back to Something Awful and the Medical forums.
Oh my.
There were political takes there, but even when we're talking about those forums, they had lefty areas and righty areas. When Gamergate happened, it was a really weird situation because if you look at like the history of how the raids worked and everything, Pole had been preparing quite a long time to kind of link up with V. Mm-hmm. So it was really well positioned to make V political when V had tried not to be. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason Moot got so fucking annoyed with it all.
Yeah. The Pole bleed out was fucking psychotic. I was mostly a Co guy. And like the attempts to get in there were like so fucking irritating. Pole owns TV. TV belongs to Pole forever now. That's why I see so many he's a big guy memes in fucking Nazi circles. Like they didn't come up with that one. I mean,
one of the best things 4chan ever did was combine the My Little Pony board with politics. That was fucking incredible.
Did they do that eventually?
Yeah.
I thought MLP still exists.
It just led to like tons of Nazi My Little Pony memes. It was actually very funny.
Dude, yeah. Milp fucking nah. Yeah. Trash God. / trash. Just send it away.
But like, yeah, when Gamergate happened, like drama commentary started to become more political because there was this really strong period where sort of lefty feminist creators were kind of going at either centrist or right-wing commentators. And there was always a political bent to a lot of the, content that was coming out around that period. Obviously, then you've got Trump. And when we're sort of hitting the current point now, people like Destiny, Hassan, Vosh don't just exist in a political bubble. The most interesting content Destiny produces to a mass appeal is the stuff around his orbiters by miles. That's what, is going to have a bigger reach out to kind of a wider community. And the truth is that commentary has always existed on YouTube. It will always exist on YouTube. It's the one sort of space that doesn't die. It just changes over time with new faces. Mm-hmm. So
I can say this time, if we kind of like, if we naturally evolve it from 2015-ish, 2014 really to 2024, it does feel like the kind of people who would be covering the same shit, the like, hey, I'm in it for the lulz. I want to make fun of basically like our public freak out, but whatever the hell that is at the moment. It seems like that subsection in drama is way more resilient to starting to peel off like bearings and fucking sargons of a cod and stuff that kind of like, hey, yeah, I'm going to do commentary today and then I'm going to try to build a fucking political program tomorrow. It seems like even
commentary.
Oh, sorry.
Commentary gets like a rap as right wing,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think is fair to it. It's really pretty apolitical. It will laugh at anybody. And you will have right wing creators within it, but it's not like left wing creators, if they engage with it, are pushed out. The biggest thing is it self selects. So, for instance, obviously, Cope and Seethe is me and Jenny. Jenny is trans. That doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's irrelevant. But what the problem is when you've got people like Tipster or Bowblacks who are like, I don't think that you should make fun of this group of people, like group of people A. It's like, well, when you're starting to tell and virtue signal to other creators, that's when it's going to become a much bigger problem for you. So if you're somebody who's like left wing, because I'm left wing, Chud's left wing, and you can laugh at your own side and not sort of try and police people, you'll be fine. The problem is, like, you had this weird period with Xanderhall where he was like, and a load of this is being dug up. Chud was going over it the other day.
I just saw like a 3-hour drop on that. Yeah,
he was just like, I'm going to make commentary more left wing. It's like, fucking what? What do you mean? That's not what it is. Go away.
The misunderstanding of it, really. I think that kind of goes to something I've been trying to say on my stuff, just as a political commentator type deal. You know, I try not to get too fucking like in the weeds with, you know, MSNBC style, whatever. But it's this, you can't take a moral position and expect to convince somebody that's not already morally on your side. And then also after that get mad, which I think is the biggest issue, at least on my, because they're the ones I can talk to between the left and talking to anyone that's not hanging out in that sphere and completely used to it on a day-to-day basis. So you say, no, like this is the morally correct thing to do. So you talk to Chud. Chud might be politically, I don't know specifically how he lays, just we'll say left, but you didn't do this thing and morally I want you to do this thing. He's like, no, fuck off. And then like it becomes like this gigantic.
You're going to drive people away if you do.
Yeah, you're going to drive people fucking nuts.
Like, because, and this is why a lot of people like dropped. I mean, it's not ironically why a lot of people who started as very left wing in the drama sphere, because Chud was Chud, I think, still describes himself as a communist, or like having communist ideals.
Communist? I did not.
Yeah. Chud was a proper soy lefty creator. And then he went through a series of dramas where he just kept getting burned by people and was like, fuck you guys. I'm just talking about drama.
That's right. He's a dude, I swear, I got poisoned to early, and I'm stunned how much I fucking like him because I know Chud from blackface cartoon panel show era.
Well, Chud just has a sense of humor. This is the problem as well with the virtue signal stuff. It's really difficult because I think one thing that people have to get over. So like, I'll just give you an example. I covered a story, this is like a few years ago now, I think, where it was about a fentanyl overdose. And it was like relevant to things that were going on. It was like involved like a load of people from around the community. And people kept calling in and going, how can you talk about this? Don't you realize that this is morally evil? You are so unethical. And I just kept saying, yes, I'm fucking not dumb. I know talking about this story is like ethically questionable, but I'm gonna fucking do it anyway. Yeah. Do you want to stay and talk to me about it, or do you want to moral flag at me and then leave? And every single one of them, after giving this huge speech about how I was an evil person, continued to talk to me.
Yeah.
About the drama. Like every single one. Because when they weren't able to, like, when I was like, yeah, it's just yeah, I know what I'm doing.
They were like,
oh, okay.
I had a similar moment. I had a similar moment with like my own chat more than a few times, right? Where I would bring up like, yeah, I was watching this Diorio thing and blah blah blah, blah. And I would have the like, I don't know if you know this, but Nick Diorio is Bad News Bears or Tom or whoever the fuck. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, they're not talking about this political specific thing. I just want to talk about like their coverage of this, which is good. You know what I mean? I'm watching a baseball player play baseball. I'm watching a drama person talking about drama. That's what I want to talk about. And at least 3 times that I can remember now, it was at least once specifically the person who brought it up, but other people are like, no, actually, like, yeah, he's okay. You know, like, I do watch him, which is why I know why I have disagreements with their politics. And it's almost like once you can break that down a little bit, you might actually get into a position where you can talk to people. Because I would hate to put other whole gigantic communities that aren't just like actively like, yeah, hey, we're the fucking tigers eat your face, whatever, that whole thing. But I don't really think that drama's like that. And there's a lot of other comedy communities that aren't. And it's just, you don't follow my rules, but me trying to interact with you and expecting that you would have to follow them doesn't make sense. And I feel like putting up such a strong fortress between us doesn't benefit either of us if I think you can benefit from thinking like me, or if, you know, I just want to like be entertained by your content. It just seems like an unnecessary and usually deleterious barrier between you and anyone else that you're talking to.
One of the comments I get quite a lot from people who kind of hate me is it depends why they hate me, of course, but is, wow, you're a much more chill person than I expected you to be. Or, you know, I've had conversations with people that are like, I don't like you use the R slur or the F slur, and I'm like, that's fine, I just won't use it in this conversation and I won't force you to watch me. But like I had a message from somebody who's like, I'm a fan, I really like your work, which does not happen very often, let me be clear. But they were like, I'm autistic, and I feel like you're using autism as an attack, and it makes me feel bad, and I want to know what your feelings are towards it, and, you know, I want to ask you about it because you seem like a good person. And I was like, look, I just don't care about language policing. I actually just don't care about it. It's not important to me, and if I pretended to you it was, I would be lying to you.
Yeah.
I do care about some things being bigoted. There are certain things that actually do annoy me. On like a personal level, I may put some of those aside with a bit of content, depending on what it is. But generally speaking, people can see where I stand in my beliefs. I think that honesty is really important. I'd say this: if you're looking at somebody and going, if you're doing the Daily Mail thing, where you're like, well, this came from the Daily Mail, so I can't trust it, you're fucking up. Yeah. You should be skeptical of what everybody tells you, because everyone has a bias. But generally speaking, just watch somebody, talk to them, see if you like the stuff, if you enjoy the content, have it as a treat. Don't even admit to people you like it. But if you lock yourself in an echo chamber where you're just like, well, these people believe the same political things as me, therefore I watch this person. The truth is that a lot of political streamers don't really believe, at least in my opinion, the stuff they talk about. I get pushback on this. I just think that, you know, there are things that if you really believe, you kind of live by. And if you're saying, well, I'm a socialist, I believe that we need a socialist revolution, and you're living in $1 million mansion, I don't know, kind of fuck off.
Socialism is win house.
You know?
Socialism is win house. Okay.
Yeah, like, but look, I get that, but it's like, I don't know, I think that true believers are quite rare. You should be aware that most content creators are telling you something they know is palatable to you. The amount of people I talk to who are like, I think this thing, or I want to... Actually, one of the really common ones is, I'm dealing with a story and it's a really disgusting individual, genuinely, and I really just want to say KYS. And I can't, not because I don't feel it, but because my audience would have issues with it. And I'm just like, that's probably an issue at some level, because I feel like I could pretty much say anything in front of my audience.
Yeah. If your audience,
I hate using that term, but like, you're like, live with it.
You're on
like,
it.
It's fine. It's whatever.
I've said that a bunch of times too, because, you know, people will call me a fascist, this, that, and that. There's a bunch of things where people are like, you shouldn't bring this up, especially when I was starting. Like, you shouldn't talk about you were in the military and blah, blah. I'm like, I can't. I don't want to put myself in a position where I've created an audience I have to hide who I am from, because even if I'm successful, then I'm going to have to like literally live a lie, you know? And if they ever find out, they're going to be pissed. And that's like, it's such a bad idea off rip. You know what I mean? And if you're a person that wants to watch stuff and you're like demanding that, you're going to limit who you have access to watch. And also, like, you might be kind of a miserable person to be around if you need someone to be
a lot
that
of creators
perfect.
end up hating their audiences, but I think there's a fundamental truth of you end up with the audience you deserve.
True. Yeah.
For some people, that's no audience at all. For some people, that's an audience they can't stand. And I think for other people, they end up with an audience they quite like. I mean, it's really interesting looking at like the way iDubbbz talks about his old audience. He was like, people came out to me on the street and said the N-word, and I didn't like that. And I'm like, well, what did you expect, dude? Like, have you seen your own content? Whereas, like, you know, I like having artists in my audience. I like having people who enjoy drama. Like, I don't ban people very, like, the only thing you'll get banned for is like TOS, and like if you're doxing somebody, you know, like extreme things. I'm just like, come chill out, laugh. I won't get mad at you, because I think that's kind of what's core. And I think a lot of people want, particularly in the politics side, a lot of people want to look like heroes. They want to be like, I'm the good person.
Yeah, paragons.
Yeah. And the fundamental truth of all of us is that humans suck. We have good parts and bad parts. Like the example I use for this is like, I know eating animals is morally wrong. I believe that to be the case. But steak is really tasty. I like eating steak. So it's kind of like a moral evil I can live with. And I don't know whether that makes me a worse person because I understand the moral implications. Probably. But it's also like, I kind of just accept that that's an evil I can live with. Whereas there are other things where I'm like, I won't do this thing because I find it objectionable to a level where I'll inconvenience myself not to do it.
And I think
I think people should be honest about that.
Right. I agreed. And I've had you for a long time, and I don't want to keep it to because I do want to make a clip video. I just want some of this information to get out because I've had conversations pretty similar to this with you, you know, on not on background, but you know, offline. And I think there's a lot to be gained for people that are on my side to reach out and see other communities and you know, not necessarily like swallow your fucking pride and hate yourself for doing it, but seeing other people. And so if you were to suggest, you know what I mean, like some like guys, some people that are like a former Demon Mama, former Vosh, former Hassan, former Destiny hangout person, or even someone that still watches them, but they're like, I don't fuck drama. If you had to recommend like 2 or 3 people from drama that would be like, oh, okay, actually I kind of get it and I don't feel uncomfortable here, like who would you suggest to check out?
I think Zylie Gets Real is like a key one. She's pretty chill. She used to be part of the tea community, so she has her soy moments as well. Okay. I think who else is pretty good with stuff like that?
The list is ended.
List through. I mean, obviously, like people like Chud, Diorio are good. I know that sometimes they can like say things that will be uncomfortable, and like maybe if you feel a certain way about certain topics, be selective of what you watch of theirs. But also, who else? Who else am I watching at the moment? FPS Diesel. FPS Diesel is a really good one. He has a really good community. And it's very chilled out. And you know, they do fun things. They do D&D streams as well, which are great. And yeah, I guess come chill with me. Occasionally I'm pretty chilled out. Chris the Narc will grow on you.
I like he's very excitable. I like it.
Yeah, I love Chris. Yeah, he's great. And yeah, some of those. But yeah, I don't know. I've seen bits of Turkey Tom. I think Turkey Tom's really solid. He's somebody who I never really watched huge amounts of until recently, and I quite like his streams. I think he's pretty good. He's very balanced and he is quite experienced. So yeah. Oh, and Willie Mack. Willie Mack's another great one.
Pretty straightforward. Willie Mack is apparently older than me. I've heard that rumor. He's like in his 40s, but he looks like he's fucking 20 something. That might have been a joke that I got.
What's his secret? I don't know how old Willie is. That's fucking crazy.
It's like somebody. I feel like I saw it on Twitter. Someone was asking, like, yeah, you know, it's like some like 20-year-old like you shouldn't be talking about this. Like, I'm in my 40s. You're like, wait, what? I don't know if you're telling the truth or not, but I kind of instantly believed it. But thanks again for stopping by, man. I got almost 2 hours of your time. Obviously, Beckett, Cope and Seethe. Beckett of Crabs on Twitter if you guys want to check him out. Probably, are you streaming tonight or?
I fucking don't know. I think I'm working on a video actually. Though that some more brony stuff has dropped and it is Brony Christmas. So maybe, possibly. If not, it'll be tomorrow. But yeah, I'm always around. But yeah,
Awesome.
no, it's been fun. It's
Yeah.
been fun. I probably yapped way too much.
No. This is exactly what I wanted. So perfect interview. No notes. Thank you very much. And unless there's anything else you want to add, man, take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Have a good night. Peace.
Peace.
Hope you enjoyed your time on the West Side.